Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Kala Chanji Radha Kala Chanji Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Good morning, devotees. My name is Manjari Gopika Devi Dasi, and today we will be reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 3, verses 1 through 7, focusing on verses 4 or 5, which is a combined verse. Before we begin, I ask for your blessings that I may speak something pleasing to my spiritual master, to Srila Prabhupada, and to all the devotees. Let us begin by chanting together the invocation prayers. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarvasvatim vyasyam tato jayam udirayet nashtaprayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Om Jnana-timirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum militam yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're beginning a new chapter today, chapter 3 of Canto 5. It's really exciting to be in Canto 5. When I first began reading Srimad Bhagavatam, it was Canto 5 that really, everything changed for me. So this is exciting to be here with all of you. Before we begin, I'll read the little summary at the beginning. So this is chapter 3, Rishabhadev's appearance in the womb of Meru Devi, the wife of King Nabhi. In this chapter, the spotless character of King Nabhi, the oldest son of Agni Dira, is described. Wanting to have sons, Maharaj Nabhi underwent severe austerities and penances. He performed many sacrifices along with his wife and worshipped Lord Vishnu, master of all sacrifices. Being very kind to his devotees, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was very pleased with the austerities of Maharaj Nabhi. He personally appeared before the king in his four-handed feature, and the priests who were performing the sacrifices began to offer their prayers unto him. They prayed for a son like the Lord, and Lord Vishnu agreed to take birth in the womb of Meru Devi, the wife of King Nabhi, and incarnate as King Rishabhadev. So we can begin just taking turns reading texts 1 through 7, and then we'll go from there.
Shukadev Goswami continued to speak. Maharaj Nabhi, the son of Agnidra, wished to have sons, and therefore he attentively began to offer prayers and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, the master and enjoyer of all sacrifices. Maharaj Nabhi's wife, Meru Devi, who had not given birth to any children at that time, also worshipped Lord Vishnu along with her husband.
In the performance of a sacrifice, there are 7 transcendental means to obtain the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 1, by sacrificing valuable things or eatables. 2, by acting in terms of place. 3, by acting in terms of time. 4, by offering hymns. 5, by going to the priest. 6, by offering gifts to the priest. And 7, by observing the regulative principles. However, one cannot always obtain the Supreme Lord through this paraphernalia. Nonetheless, the Lord is affectionate to his devotee. Therefore, when Maharaj Nabhi, who was a devotee, worshipped and offered prayers to the Lord with great faith, in devotion, and with pure, uncontaminated mind, superficially performing some yajna in the line of Pravarga, the kind Supreme Personality of Godhead, due to his affection for his devotees, appeared before King Nabhi in his unconquerable and captivating form with 4 hands. In this way, to fulfill the desire of his devotee, the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifested himself in his beautiful body before his devotee. His body pleases the mind and the eyes of the devotees.
Lord Vishnu appeared before King Nabhi with 4 arms. He was very bright, and he appeared to be the best of all personalities. Around the lower portion of his body, he wore a yellow silken garment. On his chest was the mark of Srivatsa, which always displays beauty. He carried a conch shell, lotus flower, disc, and club, and he wore a garland of forest flowers and the Kaustuba gem. He was beautifully decorated with a helmet, earrings, bangles, belt, pearl necklace, armlets, ankle bells, and other bodily ornaments, bedecked with radiant jewels. Seeing the Lord present before them, King Nabhi and his priests and associates felt just like poor people who have suddenly attained great riches. They received the Lord and respectfully bent their heads and offered him things in worship.
The priests began to offer prayers to the Lord, saying, "O most worshipful one, we are simply your servants. Although you are full in yourself, please, out of your causeless mercy, accept a little service from us, your eternal servants. We are not actually aware of your transcendental form, but we can simply offer our respectful obeisances again and again, as instructed by the Vedic literatures and authorized acharyas. Materialistic living entities are very much attracted to the modes of material nature, and therefore they are never perfect, but you are above the jurisdiction of all material conceptions. Your name, form, and qualities are all transcendental and beyond the conception of experimental knowledge. Indeed, who can conceive you? In the material world, we can perceive only material names and qualities. We have no other power than to offer our respectful obeisances and prayers unto you, the transcendental person. The chanting of your auspicious transcendental qualities will wipe out the sins of all mankind. That is the most auspicious activity for us, and we can thus partially understand your supernatural position.
O Supreme Lord, you are full in every respect. You are certainly very satisfied when your devotees offer you prayers with faltering voices, and in ecstasy bring you tulsi leaves, water, twigs bearing new leaves, and newly grown grass. This surely makes you satisfied.
We have engaged in your worship with many things and have offered sacrifices unto you, but we think that there is no need for so many arrangements to please your lordship.
Okay, thank you. Let's go back to verse 4/5, 4 and 5. We will go directly to the English translation and purport. Translation, this is Canto 5, Chapter 3, verses 4 and 5. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The priest began to offer prayers to the Lord, saying, O most worshipable one, we are simply your servants. Although you are full in yourself, please, out of your causeless mercy, accept a little service from us, your eternal servants. We are not actually aware of your transcendental form, but we can simply offer our respectful obeisances again and again, as instructed by the Vedic literatures and authorized acharyas. Materialistic living entities are very much attracted to the modes of material nature, and therefore they are never perfect. But you are above the jurisdiction of all material conceptions. Your name, form, and qualities are all transcendental and beyond the conception of experimental knowledge. Indeed, who can conceive of you? In the material world, we can perceive only material names and qualities. We have no other power than to offer our respectful obeisances and prayers unto you, the transcendental person. The chanting of your auspicious transcendental qualities will wipe out the sins of all mankind. This is the most auspicious activity for us, and we can thus partially understand your supernatural position. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has nothing to do with material perception. Even the impersonalist Shankaracharya says, Narayana Paro Vyaktat. Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is beyond the material conception. We cannot concoct the form and attributes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We must simply accept the description given in Vedic literatures about the Lord's form and activities. As stated in Brahma Samhita 5.29, Chintamani prakarasar masukopa vriksha laksha vrateshu surabhirapi parayantam lakshmi sahasra shatasam brahmasevya manam govinda mari purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, yielding all desires in abodes built with spiritual gems and surrounded by millions of purpose trees. He is always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. We can have some conception of the absolute truth, his form, and his attributes simply by reading the descriptions given in Vedic literatures and authoritative statements given by exalted personalities like Brahma, Narada, Shukadev Goswami, and others. Srila Rupa Goswami says, Ata Sri Krishna namadi na bhaved grayam indraye. We cannot conceive the name, forms, and qualities of Sri Krishna through our material senses. Because of this, other names for the Lord are Adokshaja and Aprakrita, which indicate that he is beyond any material senses. Out of his causeless mercy upon his devotees, the Lord appeared before Maharaj Nabhi. Similarly, when we are engaged in the Lord's devotional service, the Lord reveals himself to us. Sevan mukhe jivadao svayam eva spurati ada. This is the only way to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattvataha. One can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service. There is no other way. We have to hear from the authorities and from the Shastras and consider the Supreme Lord in terms of their statements. We cannot imagine or concoct forms and attributes of the Lord. Jai. So today we will discuss how we can only know the Lord by devotional service and revelation. In today's verse, we see that Maharaj Nabhi and the Brahmanas are offering an opulent fire sacrifice to Lord Vishnu. And they're worshiping in this way because this was the standard of worship in that day. This was the highest act of devotional service. But it is stated here that it wasn't because the yajna was perfectly performed that Lord Vishnu appeared. I was thinking the yajnas, they're not like baking a cake, you know, where you like put in the flour and the sugar and then you mix it and then you set the oven and then you put it, as long as you follow all the instructions perfectly, then at the right time, a cake appears. But the yajnas, you're pouring in the ghee and you're doing the oblations and the rice and the chanting the mantras. But just because you do that perfectly doesn't mean Lord Vishnu is going to come. It's just to please him. But in this instance, Lord Vishnu did come. So why is that? Krishna is independent. He comes by his own sweet will. He came, it says, because of Maharaj Nabhi's devotion and humility. Text 2 states that Maharaj Nabhi, while he superficially appeared to be just offering yajna, he was actually a great devotee. He had an uncontaminated mind while he was doing this, and that's why Lord Vishnu was so moved that he came before them. The Lord is pleased by his devotees and the devotion of his devotees, and that's really the whole essence of our Krishna consciousness movement. The whole purpose of religion in the Vedic conception is to know God and to love him. In fact, if you were to ask people of different faiths, aside from their rituals, if they agree with this, that the purpose of their religion is to know God and love him, they would say yes. That's the fundamental principle of all faiths. So, how to reach that goal? It's stated very clearly in this purport, by the process of serving him, by the process of serving the Lord. We can know him and love him, not by the process of imagining him or mental speculation. Only through the process of descending knowledge. I believe some of you are taking Bhakti Shastri. Is that right? Have you discussed ascending knowledge versus descending knowledge? Yeah. Do you want to explain the difference between descending knowledge and ascending knowledge?
Yeah, ascending knowledge is what's popular nowadays. It's kind of the scientific approach to life that from your own observation, experimentation, you can come to understand things. But that doesn't work when it comes to the spiritual knowledge, when it comes to Krishna. We have to get it from the descending knowledge coming down from him in disciplic succession. That's the only way we can understand this. We're kind of like a little ant trying to understand humans right now. It doesn't work.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Descending knowledge is ascending knowledge. Like I think of it, we're climbing up. We're trying to use every little attribute that we have to figure something out. But it's all speculative because our senses are imperfect. And we're trying to understand the Supreme who is infinite and unchanging. And that can only be received from descending knowledge, directly into disciplic succession, as you said. So we can understand Krishna only in the ways that he reveals himself. As mentioned in the purport, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Atha Shri Krishna nabhati na bhaved grayam indraye. We cannot conceive the name, form, and qualities of Krishna through our material senses. And the purport notes that their names for the Lord are Adokshaja and Aprakrita. Adokshaja means beyond the senses. Aprakrita means non-material or beyond material. A devotee once asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, you say that Krishna has wonderful limbs and eyes, but they're different from ours. Like his eyes can eat, but he has no form that we can comprehend. How then are we to understand the form of Krishna that's given to us in the pictures in the murtis? And Prabhupada said, yes, I have explained that you are to simply serve him. Then he will reveal. You cannot understand Krishna by your ascending process. You have to serve Krishna, and Krishna will reveal to you. No one can understand Krishna, how he came in a four-handed form to his parents and then turned into a two-handed form. No one can understand how he's married to 16,108 wives, or how to fully even grasp that he's a supreme person, and yet his name is non-different from his person. It's inconceivable. But Krishna is so kind that he does reveal to us through devotional service. In Bhagavad Gita 11:54, Krishna explicitly states, "My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding." And Krishna chooses to do so. He chooses to reveal himself to us, reciprocating with our devotion. Yeyata mam prapadyante tamstavaiva pujamyaham. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. And we may think that we have some qualifications and qualities. I have a PhD in Sanskrit, which is very impressive, by the way. I have a PhD in Sanskrit, or I'm a third-generation devotee, or I sponsor every Janmashtami festival. But ultimately, Krishna says none of these things matter. He enjoys having a relationship with each of us, and he doesn't actually need our intelligence or our lineage or our money. He just wants our devotion. And this is explained here in today's verse. The priests understand also, if you notice, the priests understand that the Lord appeared not because of their wonderful abilities. They're not saying, look, everybody, we did it, here's Lord Vishnu. They are praying with sincerity, and Vishnu is attracted by their devotion. In this case, too, the priest didn't even compose prayers in the choicest form of poetry. Did you notice that? This verse isn't exquisite Sanskrit poetry like we see elsewhere. And it's certainly not mind-blowing, heart-wrenching Sanskrit of the likes of Srila Rupa Goswami. This is prose. But Krishna was touched by what was behind the prose, and so he came. Let's look at their prayers. The first point of the prayer, they acknowledge their position. They say, "We are your servants." And second, they ask for service. Please engage me in your service. Oftentimes when people pray, the first thing that comes to mind is not, "I am your servant." It's something that we need, that we feel we need help with. But the priests, because they have true knowledge of themselves, of their position, they're not asking like that. They're not allowing themselves to be distracted by material allurements. They're asking for service. And third, they say, "Lord, we cannot understand your position." We can't. We see him here in his deity form. It's so wonderful. It's incredible. He's here right now, and he hears my prayer, and he hears your prayer, and he hears the prayers of everyone in the room, and he's reciprocating with each and every person. And then 3.5 hours away in Houston, he's also in Houston, and he's hearing all the prayers there, and he's reciprocating with every single prayer in that room, and in every country, and in every planet, he's reciprocating with every single prayer. He's engaging with his devotees at all times. It's so wonderful. How could we understand? And this is the Brahmana's mood. Out of his causeless mercy, it says in the purport, the Lord appeared before Maharaj Nabhi. Similarly, when we're engaged in the Lord's devotional service, the Lord reveals himself to us. So that is the good news, that he can also reveal himself to us, just like he does in this instance. And we have so many items of devotional service: chanting, hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam, deity worship. These are 3 of the 5 most important items of devotional service. And if any of them are done perfectly, then in a moment, we can receive him in full knowledge. The problem for many of us, and I'm speaking about myself, is that we are not so single-pointed in our devotional service, oftentimes. When we are focused on Krishna, he will reciprocate. If we take, for example, a teacher, where there's a classroom of 20 students, the teacher wants each student to succeed. That is why they are there giving the class. And there may be one student who's always on time, in fact, often early. And the student sits up front and is very engaged, takes notes, asks questions, answers correctly when called upon. There's another student whose attendance is inconsistent, often passes the class time by writing notes to their friends, rarely answers a question correctly because they're usually busy planning the weekend instead of actually listening to what's being taught to them. Which student gets more mercy from the teacher? The one who's more focused, the one who's showing that they're really trying. And Krishna is that teacher. He's here, he's ready, he's standing on the altar, but we have to be fully focused. Does anyone know that famous story of Arjuna and the Pandavas, the other Pandavas, training with Dronacharya, with the bird? Yeah, Dronacharya, it's like training camp in my imagination. We have all these Olympians going, right? They did their training camp. So the Pandavas are at the ashram of their teacher, Dronacharya, and he was teaching them archery, and he put this wooden bird, this perfectly carved wooden bird that had all these details on it, feathers and an eye and a beak, high up on a tree, and he had each of them stand in a line and take up the bow, and he said, but don't fire the arrow until I tell you. So they lined up. Yudhisthira goes up first, he's the eldest, and he says, before you fire, Yudhisthira, tell me, what do you see? And he says, I see the bird. What else do you see, Yudhisthira? Oh, I see the tree. Anything else? I see the branches. And Dronacharya says, Yudhisthira, put down the bow. And he calls up the next brother. What do you see? I see the bird. Anything else? Yes, I see the tree. Anything else? Yes, I see the sky. Put down the bow. And finally, he calls up Arjuna. And he says, Arjuna, what do you see? Arjuna says, I see the eye of the bird. And Drona says, what else do you see? I don't see anything else. Do you see the tree? No. Do you see the sky? No. Arjuna, what do you see? I see the eye of the bird. Arjuna, release the arrow. Arjuna was so single-focused. That was his only goal. He would not allow himself to be allured by anything else surrounding it. And that's why he is the greatest archer. Prabhupada has gifted us this society for Krishna consciousness. He said many times that we are here to help each other be Krishna conscious. His teaching was not that we take our bead bag and go to Holy Dham and do bhajan. He gifted us this society. He gave us a morning program. He translated Shastra with purports, such incredible purports. I usually don't even want to give a class after I read the purport. I just want to drop the mic and walk out. And he gave us so many different services so that we can clean our hearts, so that our minds can become uncontaminated like Maharaj Nabhi, and we can become focused in our service and attain the mercy of Krishna, just like this king has. But when we do devotional service, it's also important not to just think about doing or doing with love for Krishna, but to do without offenses. There are 4 kinds of anartas. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that these anartas, which are the unwanted things that grow in the heart, he says these anartas can be categorized from the place where they arise. For example, one source of anarta is due to one's past sinful activities. But the process of bhakti is so strong that those can be eradicated. The second category of anartas, this is interesting, are those that arise from one's past pious activities. It's very easy to understand how we have anartas from bad things we've done, but anartas from good things that we have done. And why is that? Because when we get something good, a fruit from pious activities, what is our usual instinct to do with that? There, yes, to enjoy it. To enjoy it, that I have it because of me, I am the enjoyer, I'm the owner of this. And what's the antidote to that? It's to engage it in bhakti, to engage it in Krishna's service, that if you got this great boon, to give it back to him. The next category of anartas are those that arise from offenses, nam aparad and seva aparad. And the fourth category of anartas are those that arise from a little success in spiritual life. And the issue with that is similar to the second anarta, which is one forgets, like Lord Brahma, right? You're promoted to the position of Lord Brahma, and then you forget why you're there in the first place. You start to identify with the position, rather than, who you are as Krishna's servant. So you could get. It's very hard. If you see powerful people, it's very hard to stay humble. Our temple president is sitting there. I'm certainly not talking about you. But it's easy to forget. We get a title. Even, here, you get recognition for something that you've done, a fundraiser you've done, or receive a gift. So when that pride enters the heart, the devotional service is no longer pure. And to qualify for the full mercy of Krishna, it's like Krishna's mercy is the sky, and those anartas are clouds. You can still see the sun, but it's not penetrating fully. So one who wants fullness of the Lord's mercy, we have to really concentrate on doing our practices with the humility that these brahmanas show. Even when Vishnu actually appears before them, they don't take any credit for it. They don't think that they're worthy of it. And one way to do that is to also constantly praise the devotees around you for their service, and then when you receive the praise, to just give it back to them. And we should also note the regulative principles help purify us. The whole Prabhupada didn't say just chant 16 rounds. In our lineage, it's not just chant 16 rounds. It's we have to give up these sinful activities because it's just not possible to continue committing sinful acts and progress in devotional service. And the chanting of the Mahamantra can wipe out all sinful reactions, but we still have to be careful to not commit offenses against it. My spiritual master said, sometimes people wonder, why am I not seeing any results from these devotional practices? I've been doing this for so long. So after many years of practicing, people will just say, why am I doing this? And they leave. They leave the movement. And he explained that in Kali Yuga, we want things cheap and fast. That's our standard. That's our expectation. No one wants to cook 3 full meals a day. We barely have the patience to cook 1 full meal a day. People want to heat up frozen food in the microwave. They want to pick up fast food or order from a restaurant. Press a button, the food is on to you. It's on its way to you. But he said, but in Kali Yuga, the thing is, we have no qualifications. We have no real good qualities. In Satya Yuga, the people were so pure. They were so pious. Just thinking about committing a sinful act was a sin. And here, my spiritual master says, we have no real good qualities. We have nothing to offer Krishna. Therefore, the minimum we can offer is 1 entire lifetime to Krishna. There is no fast and cheap way to Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita 18:55, it is said, Krishna says famously, one can understand me as I am, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Krishna wants us there. And we have so many wonderful instances that prove that Krishna is completely sold out to the genuine devotion of his devotees. And he'll do anything to reciprocate with them. In this case, he chooses to take birth in the womb of Meru Devi just because he wants to please King Nabhi. And one day, Krishna will reveal himself to us. But what are we to do until then? We are to continue acting faithfully as the Brahmanas do, with the right mood, with the right frame of mind. And importantly, as the purport notes, worshipping the form of Krishna as described in the Shastra. And I'll end just by sharing this purport from the 7th canto, chapter 4, verses 25-26. Prabhupada explains, because all these devotional activities are absolute, there is no fundamental difference between worshiping the deity in the temple, seeing him and chanting his glories. Indeed, all of these are ways of seeing him. For everything done in devotional service is a means of direct contact with the Lord. Performing kirtan and hearing the vibration of the sound Hare Krishna is actually seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. One must realize this position, and then one will be able to understand the absolute nature of the Lord's activities. Hare Krishna, that is what I have prepared. So I'd love to hear your comments or realizations or questions. Hare Krishna. Come on, Krishna House. No, I didn't.
Hare Krishna. Wow. Amazing class. This amazing picture right here. Wow. Imagine doing a fire yagya and Vishnu comes swooping down. Oh my God. One day we'll do some devotional service and Krishna will swoop down on our devotional service. But my thought is that when we first read the verse, I was thinking, that it says that Krishna, you're full in yourself, and my heart kind of sank and going, Krishna doesn't need anything from me. Like, whoa, like literally, there's nothing that he needs from me. But then your class brought me back up in that he really wants our devotional service. And I was appreciating your point that it's really tough, though. Krishna's very renounced. He really wants us to understand the long game here, that like this place is not for us. And so he really wants all of that gone. And it can be very, very difficult. I was thinking there's a secret, though. There's a great secret, and that's Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, who are opening the floodgates of Krishna Prema, And what do they want from us? They want us to engage in Sankirtan. They want us to share Krishna with everyone and anyone we come in contact. And I really trust that all of us as devotees who have engaged in Sankirtan by going on book distribution or engaging in or encouraging people to chant, you really feel love of Krishna so quickly. Like you really feel happy, like so quick. Like it's like me and Ajit went to this house the other day, and we sang kirtan for 2 hours with this devotee. We didn't know anything. And for 2 hours we sat there and sang kirtan all the way through. And I really could just feel like he was engaging us in Sankirtan with his family, who were they had devotee names, but you could tell they weren't practicing and stuff. But I could see that the Father was engaging us all in Sankirtan. And it was just so like, you feel it like instantly. So I would just I really encourage everyone to really think about your life in the fact of Sankirtan, because it is really that thing which was so, that Krishna Prema. Sorry for the winded talk.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you. Definitely inspiring all of us to go on Sankirtan. And then Gokulananda.
Thank you. That was Hare Krishna. That was a wonderful class, and I agree with Nanda that Krishna's reciprocation is absolutely amazing. I have a question for you. In 532, it lists the 7 transcendental means to obtain the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 2 is by acting in terms of place, and 3 is by acting in terms of time. Can you explain that?
That's a very nice question. Let's see here. Acting in terms of place, acting in terms of time. Probably I'll have Gokulananda Prabhu answer that. But what comes to my mind is that, oh, you have a realization? What comes to my mind is that when it comes to the rules and regulations of our faith, our scriptures are not textual, they're contextual. And so we have to act accordingly as to time, place, and situation. Not just time, not just place. In the Bible, there were, and I think you see this with like the Smarta Brahmins, but I grew up Catholic, and so I studied the Bible a lot. Maybe, I don't know if you did also. But the Pharisees, so Jesus was a Jew, but he was preaching this kind of philosophy that was so foreign to the Pharisees, where this other kind of sect of Judaism, who were very, very strict. Like they wouldn't go do anything, they wouldn't distribute charity to like poor people because they were so filthy. And you can't be doing your rituals if you're filthy, you know. So they were kind of famous for following the letter of the law, as Jesus said, rather than the spirit of the law. And the spirit of the law is what? It's to love God, and it's to give his mercy to everyone. And if you're so strict on, you know, not messing up any of these, rituals, that then what are you actually really doing? How is it actually pleasing God? That is the first thing that comes to my mind when it says that. But Gokulananda Prabhu, I would love to hear your answer to that question. I'm going to phone a friend.
Sorry, I was a little spaced out.
Her question is about these 2 points in the performance of a sacrifice. There are 7 means of attaining the mercy, and she was saying, well, what does it mean with acting in terms of place, item 2, and number 3, acting in terms of time?
You already answered. It was
Oh, good.
wonderful. Just to add, in the word spirit or spiritual, you take out SP, which stands for spirit. It is reduced to ritual. But the spirit is important.
And there's that making me think too of the story of Krishna and the Brahmanas in the 10th canto, where the Brahmanas are sitting around and they're doing yajna, and they got rice and stuff. And Krishna's with his friends, and they're all dirty. They've been helping the cows all day. And then his friends say, Krishna, we're hungry. And he's like, yeah, okay. And they start teasing him, and they call him all these great names that I can't remember. Like, you're defeater of the demons. Come on, get us some food. And Krishna says, okay, all right, I know where to go. Let's go to the house of the Brahmanas. And they go, and the Brahmanas are outside, and they're doing yajna. And, you know, swaha, and and throw the rice at this time. And Krishna and his friends come up, and they say, we're hungry. And they say, get away from here. You're all dirty. And Krishna said, please, I'm so hungry. My friends are so hungry. And they're just like, get out. You're messing up the timings. And then Krishna goes to the wives of the Brahmanas. He goes to the house, and he knocks on the door. And his friends are like, Krishna's hungry. And they're like, what? Krishna's hungry? Krishna's hungry? They drop everything that they're doing. They get everything they possibly can out of the stores. They start, don't go anywhere. I'm so sorry this is taking so long. You just wait, please. Oh, do you need more? And Krishna was teaching who is actually higher, the Brahmanas who are swaha, swaha at the exact right time, or the wives who did the perfect sacrifice there.
I just remembered Pradyumna Prabhupada disciple, he made a wonderful point. He said there is Bharavahi and Saragrahi. So Karmakandis, those who are ritualistic, they are just caught up into the rituals. So he said there is something called principle, and there is another thing called detail. The principle is eating, for example. So as per place, right? You go to India, there is different food. You come to America, there is American food. You go to China, there is different food. As per time, in winter, we have different attire. In tropical conditions, you go to, there is different attire, right? You go to Arctic region, there is different attire. So as per time, the principle remains same, which is to eat and which is to wear clothes. The cultured people, they do clothing, right? But as per time, place, situation, the principles need to be adhered to, but then details may vary. So Pradyumna Prabhu, he was making this point those who are caught up into rituals, they're simply carrying the burden on their head. So they're called in Sanskrit bharavai. Bhara means burden. They're just carrying that burden of following the rituals. But on the contrary, there are people who are extracting the essence. And he gave the example of the honeybee. Honeybee is always hovering over the flowers, beautiful flowers, extracting the essence, which is the honey. On the contrary, the bees, you will see them, if there is a wound, will just go and hover and come and sit on that wound only, or in the garbage or the filthy place. So that is like carrying the burden. But expert people, they simply extract the essence. Bharagrai and Saravai, as per time, place, and situation, that is an acharya. So I was thinking about when you mentioned the point, how Arjuna, how many times I have heard that, but you just pulled me into that pastime, and for the very first time you made me feel. Can you imagine? I was trying on that picture where Krishna and Balaram are. So Krishna's eyes, I was trying to focus on Krishna's eyes, and I couldn't see the only eye. Can you imagine? It is so very difficult, so very difficult. Just step into Arjuna's shoes and he's able to see only eye, huge, big, one eye. Can you imagine? So that kind of focus is required. And then I remembered Radhanath Swami, just recently I was listening to the lecture. He said, he was giving the lecture and somebody just got up to turn the switch, to turn the fan on, something like that. And he said, we are so much distracted in Kali Yuga. Somebody walks in, especially me, I can vouch to it. I keep doing that. I'm so much distracted. Like that question I couldn't grasp, right? So that was a wonderful point. Thank you for making me feel the importance, focusing.
Thank you for sharing. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So this is kind of a follow-up to what Prabhu mentioned about the point. And first of all, thank you so much for the wonderful class, and totally agree with all the points here. So in translation, Srila Prabhupada mentions that Krishna is so full in himself, which is very interesting because we are full of ourselves. And when we are full of ourselves,
we're full of.
Exactly. So when we are full of ourselves, we are not hungry for the Lord. So the question is, how do we reduce, our fullness and become more hungry for the Lord?
Well, that's the mess we're all in. Well, obviously chanting is the means of realization in this age, because by chanting the holy name, we have to do it in a humble state of mind. We're appealing to the Lord. We're appealing to him at the lowest, and he's the highest. And saying, the prayer is, please engage me in your devotional service. And when we cry out to him with humility, that's how we please him. The only way we can actually chant properly is to be humble. And then how to be humble, right? So then we go back to that. But they go hand in hand. We have to do our best to chant concentrating on the mantra, and that will cleanse our hearts. We know that. We know that. But association with devotees is so important. I mean, it's mentioned also in the purport today that not just do devotional service, but do devotional service as instructed by a spiritual master, as explained in the disciplic succession, and with other devotees. If we think that we can chant while still associating primarily with people who don't have the same goal as us, we're just treading water. So associating with devotees so that you can hear as much as possible about the Lord and his pastimes, that also will help us to realize who we actually are, that I'm not Megan Butt, senior executive assistant to the president of whatever, that I'm actually Manjari Gopika, and I am an idiot and a sari, and they put me on the Vyasa. So truly, that's what keeps us humble. I hope that's helpful. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. I know you already talked about it, but I was wondering if you wanted to expand. how do we prevent or how do we mitigate the anarthas that come from some success in spiritual life and position and these things?
Well, definitely I think prayer. I mean, I have a lot of anarthas, I don't know how much I can help you, but based on what I've read, again, chanting in a humble state of mind so that that should take us 2 hours a day. So there should be 2 hours out of our day where we're reminding ourselves that we are really, really small and we're just trying to serve someone great. But I will share, I've shared this in the past, His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj was once asked what to do when someone compliments you on your devotional service. Oh, that was so great, that the dresses look so wonderful, that class was amazing. And he said, well, you should immediately say, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Because we would not be in this temple room without Srila Prabhupada. We would never have read that book without Srila Prabhupada. We would never have chanted the holy name without Srila Prabhupada. So actually, you are nothing. You are the recipient of Prabhupada's mercy, and you're just passing that along. So I do always think of that. Hare Krishna, Nanda Braj Prabhu.
Go out on Sankirtan. Try to tell somebody about Krishna, and you'll realize really quickly how little you know about Krishna.
Yeah.
Because they're not because you're so right. Srila Prabhupada has given us so much, but when we speak it, sometimes we can understand our realization in it.
Right.
We can, and it's really nice because those people are hearing Srila Prabhupada's words and getting a benefit, but we're also getting the benefit of speaking Srila Prabhupada's words and be able to take inventory, I guess you could say, of how much do I really, understand what Srila Prabhupada's giving us. And so Sankirtan can really humble us in so many different ways, sharing Krishna consciousness. But at the same time, giving us so much juice to do Krishna consciousness too.
Thank you. I'll also share, praying before whatever your service is. I do that. His Holiness Giriraj Swami, I asked him, okay, so we had his Vyasa Puja here, and His Holiness Hridayananda Das Goswami Maharaj gave this really wonderful and hilarious, at times, offering. And he talked about how when Giriraj Swami was just, Giriraj Das Brahmachari, they would go on Sankirtan in the Boston Commons. And they didn't even have books printed then. This is the late 60s. They just had Back to Godhead magazine. And he said he used to watch Giriraj Swami, and he said nearly everyone bought a Back to Godhead magazine from him. And he said, as just like some compare and contrast, he said, next to no one bought a magazine from me. So when I had the opportunity, I asked Giriraj Maharaj, I related that story, and I said, so what's your advice for book distribution, And he said, well, I would just pray. I would pray before my service to Paramatma to give me the words to speak that would touch the Paramatma within them. And I would pray that the Paramatma within them would be receptive. And then I would stay there with them and show them the pictures, because I feel like if they held it, they would get attached to it. And he said, and then after I sold the book to them, or sold the magazine to them, he said I would stay and I would talk with them a little bit, because I didn't want them to think this was just a transaction. I wanted them to feel like I cared about them spiritually, and I do. That's what he said. So I always pray before my services. I pray to Paramatma to help me to, remember the things I've learned and to share something that will touch people. And then at the end, then I know that anything that happened wasn't because of me. I asked for help, and does that make sense? That it helps me remember that I'm not the doer. I asked for help. Oh, Nrsimha Prabhu. No, we haven't heard from you in a while, please.
Really appreciating the all the questions and comments when you were talking about, how do we not be so full of ourselves, and then and then yours about, when you do service, like how do you prevent that from creating some kind of pride or anarthas? And my mom says often, and I don't remember the exact source of it, some of you might, but she quotes often the, don't think less of yourself. No, what is it? Yeah, don't think less of yourself, but think of yourself less.
Yeah.
You know, and I really was thinking about that as we were talking, and it's, you know, I think it's just about taking myself out of the center, that I'm not the center of everything that I'm doing, and so thinking of myself less, it means I'm thinking of hopefully Krishna more, and that Krishna is in the center there. And I was, just appreciating the conversation about just immediately passing on any praise that comes to you, pass it up to your spiritual master. And really, Srila Prabhupada and the devotees that have helped us so much along the way, because it's really the case, right? Like we can't do any of this on our own. It's like the truth. It's the reality. And so, you know, often my mind or my false ego will say, oh yeah, that's, you know, I'm being praised. And, but the reality is that we aren't. We're instruments of, you know, our Guru's mercy, and we're only made up of the mercy that we've received in this life, and because of that mercy, we have something to offer and to give forward. So anyway, just really appreciating the conversation and the wonderful class. Thank you.
Thank you. So beautifully said. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.